right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Let's Talk About It. A podcast is a platform for real talk, real people, real topics, real conversations. For people watching us on YouTube, please like, subscribe, share, comment. People listening to us on Apple, Spotify, or IHEART Radio, please like, please subscribe, because today's episode is going to be a good one. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of addictions in this world, a lot of different ones, but today we're going to talk about a specific one. It's gambling. My friend Chris, I've been knowing her for many, many years from back in Jersey. You know what I mean? This and that. Like we're two avid, we're 100% Eagles fans. Go Birds. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna bring on Chris to talk about gambling addictions. She has a great story with this. Chris, how are you doing today?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes. And also, don't forget, two-time Super Bowl winning champions. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's right. What a parade it was.
Oh, God, I wish I was there. How was it? Was it good?
Fabulous. Unlike anything I have ever experienced in my life.
I didn't go to either one of them. I'm pissed off about that.
I honestly, I was with moms, and that was like the best Valentine's Day I've had ever.
Oh, God. Oh, man. I'm mad at you. Anyway.
You'll make it.
Chris, we've been knowing each other for a long time. Didn't know about this addiction part of your life till maybe like a few years ago. So let's start off. First came around. When did you start first gambling?
So originally, I went to Atlantic City for the first time in, I want to say 2002. Like
Okay.
I was about 22 when I went for the first time.
Mm.
Other than that, it had been like the family little baby pools where, $2, you guess how much the kid's going to weigh, if it's a boy or a girl, and being the oldest of 21 grandchildren, well, there were quite a few of them going on.
Whoa.
So, yeah. Of course, I remember being in those smoke-filled 1980s bingo halls with my grandma and my Aunt Mary. These are like the early exposures. The racetrack, my parents, my grandparents, we have a nice little day.
Mm-hmm.
When we were younger, and you'd be like, oh, I like the color green. Okay, $2. They'd go play it. You'd win 4, and they were like, oh, great day, But those were like good memories with my grandparents,
Yeah.
And then when I turned 21, I think when I turned 21, I saw that I could play a lot of different things, I've been buying the lottery tickets for my dad or Aunt Mary, all these things going on.
Yeah.
And they were always going to Atlantic City, but I had never actually gotten there until I was working for a company. I was the shipping coordinator. This is like right back to the time about you and me met.
Yeah.
And I was working there, and they had a conference, like they had a pool and spa show, and it was held in. So I went down, and once I got there, it was like, wow, all right, this place is cool. This place is cool. I never really had to go there because I grew up at the beach and the boardwalk. I had Point and Seaside, all these places. Growing up with the boardwalk right there, Atlantic City wasn't necessarily a vacation destination for us.
Yeah.
So time goes on there. I get there. We start playing. Me and my coworker were playing that whole day. It happened to be Super Bowl Sunday. So I don't even remember who was playing then. And we got there, and every machine that I touched just started turning to gold. Like, it was a great first experience, Like, these machines were hitting like 100, 150, and I was at, when I was at the casino, they're hitting. I'm like, okay, my friend comes and joins me, and she starts hitting, and we're just having a great time. And I think the whole thing cost me about $10. And we start playing. Every machine that we went to, Lou, every single one, the two of us are hitting like crazy. by the time I left that night, I had almost $6,000 in my own money. Yeah. This is like 2022. I had $6,000 in cash in my pocket, ready to go. And my girlfriend, who had to stay for the rest of the week down there, she ended up giving me, a couple $1,000s to take to her bank for her, because we could make deposits for other people back then, And I said, yeah, no problem. Today we call that responsible gambling. So,
Okay.
we weren't even using ATM cards as much then. So she deposited, okay, no problem. Got home that day, and it was like, all right. Started putting money away, started writing my checks, my deposit slips out. I went to the banks, put it all in. I actually had some vacation money because at that time I just had a brand new niece in Louisiana.
Uh-huh.
And that's when my first niece was born. So I got to put some money aside. And I was like, okay, this is all great. Then about 2 weeks later, wouldn't you know it, the casinos loved me. They
Oof.
loved me. They sent me fan mail. They sent me little coupon books in the mail saying,
What?
hey, come on down.
Oh, damn.
Want a show? Hey, all right. And then they told their friends, the other casinos, and they started sending me mail. So I was like, oh, this is great. I can take a couple vacation days, don't have to pay for a hotel, see a show, eat, I love those buffets. I'm not going to lie. And so, it was like, okay, all right.
Wait a minute,
So,
Chris. I remember, if I can remember, when we first met, I think you was talking about like a lot of comps.
yeah, I did. I got free rooms. I would, get up to my level, and that's only 2 years. So like I said, I'm into it where it's like, oh, this is great. Like I could go. Now I never wanted to go to Vegas because I never wanted it to take away how I felt about Atlantic City.
Yeah.
So, and at first, like I said, it was the coupons, it was special occasions. If I had 2 days off, and that's pretty much how it rolled for many years,
All right. So wait a minute, Chris. All right. So you're gambling, you're having fun, you're getting free comps,
right.
this and that. Did you do anything else besides go to the casino? Did you, because back in the day they didn't have online. Did you do like that, like the lottery and stuff like that?
I mean, I wasn't big on it, scratch offs here and there. I would go to racetracks,
Okay.
I would do that. Like, I can't think of, it was definitely the casinos. Now, that's what I said. It took it's not until 6 years later that
Mhm.
the online played the biggest part.
Yeah.
My spiral.
All right. So in 6 years,
Yep.
okay, you're enjoying this. So you was on a win streak for 6 years. Am I safe to say that? Or you was
Uh,
up and down?
I was, under the thing that, I was on a winning streak. Like I kind of had it set. Okay. I only have $100. That's all I'm going to take. My grandmother was one who told me only take what you can afford to lose, so I
Okay.
always had that in my head, but I
Okay.
would take advantage of all the free stuff, and,
Ah.
go down there with my friends, be able to do stuff. And, as I'm trying to build my card, it wasn't anything out of the normal at that point in time.
Okay.
So,
So
yep.
I'm sorry. So
No.
when you look back on it now, the
Uh-huh.
6 years, like, up and down, your grandma said only take $100. What do you think about how where you was like in your head mentally at that? Go back and think about
Um,
it for the first
it may
6 years.
be, it was still the entertainment factor. It was just something to go do and have fun.
Okay.
Being that age, I was also just starting to go to bars, just started to hang out,
Mm-hmm.
that like my life was going that way. I started, I can honestly say that I started to notice that personality behavior. Maybe I drank a little too much. There was a lot of, mental stuff going on. but it wouldn't come out until like way later.
All right. So I would like to tell the audience something. Gambling is a billion-dollar industry. In the U.S., gambling has become to be a $40 billion a year. $40 billion a year they're making off of gambling. $40 billion per year. That is fucking insane.
Crazy.
So Chris, so 6 years, you went through all that, and you probably got a little inkling. Like, did you feel at that time you was having a little problem or not problem? Or you just having fun with it? You was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna do this.
With the gambling aspect, yes. Maybe I was, out drinking a little bit more than usual, so that kind of kept me busy where I could stay close to home. In 2006, I also had gone back to, back to being a 911 operator.
Mm-hmm.
I became an EMT all around that same time.
Got it.
And I'd say pretty much, like I said, from 2006 until 2013, I did not see it as a problem. I was not having any issues on the gambling front whatsoever. Just life in general.
Just life in general. Now,
Yeah,
financially, you were good, right? At this time, or no?
I was normal. I didn't really have any big upsets due to gambling. Just going from a couple jobs to jobs. I had two jobs starting in 2006. I had two jobs. I was working full time for one department, and then I started working part time for another police department.
Okay.
And one of them was in my hometown, and I really, really, really wanted that spot. And I started to notice as a part-time employee that I kept getting skipped over. I'm training people less experienced, and I kept getting skipped over. At one point, I gave up my full-time job, and I said, nope, I want them to know how serious I am at the part-time. Time goes by. I put in 7 years of training people, getting skipped over at least 5 or 6 times. And at one point, it was after Superstorm Sandy, after I was 36 years old, put myself to the fire academy, became a volunteer firefighter at 36.
Remember that?
Kicking some of that 18, 19-year-old boy butt, not going to lie. And, once that happened, after all that, in 2013, and this was like a key point in everything, 2013, my hometown told me, we don't want part-time dispatchers anymore. You gotta go.
Oh.
Like, okay, great. That's all I wanted. And something else happened at that time. All my casinos were now online. Just talking casinos. We didn't, no sports betting yet. They were all online. And I could just be at home. I could be on my phone, everything. And that little piece of disappointment just set me over.
Oh, like how does it set you over? Like what? Because they made it easier for you to get to. That's
made it easier for me to get to that. I wouldn't have to go to Atlantic City to have fun. It was the mental health aspect. I was depressed that I didn't get this, and when I gambled, I felt better. I just felt better. If I had a good day, I wanted to gamble. If I had a bad day, I wanted to gamble. If I wanted to celebrate anything, bring my friends down to act like that big shot. I got the card, don't play next to me here. Take my card and go. Because if you play next to me and my machine's not being nice, well, you got to go. You messed it all up.
Chris, you know what? I'm glad you said that, right? There's a podcast, right? Like another podcast friend of mine, Joe Summers, right? She has like a podcast called Breakfast with Choices, and she, it deals with addiction and all other stuff like that. She was saying that addictions, no matter what it is, it's kind of like a cure, or like that you gravitate to addiction to have a cure for whatever your problem is. They have to put a Band-Aid on it, like drugs or sex or whatever it is. It all comes down to mental. Everything is mental. So you went through 2006 to 2013. You was having, you wanted to, keep on going with your career, firefighter, badass, Wonder Woman, Amazon girl. I fucking love that shit. I love that shit with you. So when online came accessible to you, and you figured that was a way to make you feel better. When did it get to the point where it was getting a little bit like overdone that you can remember?
Okay, no problem. So between 2013 and 2017, in that period of time, I'd be playing online, and while I'm playing online, I might win a couple $100.
Okay.
Well, I didn't want to wait until PayPal sent anything or, something in the mail. I didn't
Yeah.
want to wait to get the funds that I won.
Yeah.
So I go down to Atlantic City, collect it, and just sit there and put it back in the machine. I can remember being in my suite, and as I'm walking down to the casino, I'm on my phone or the iPad playing on my way down.
This is from 2017.
This is between 2013 and 2017. That kind of became my norm.
Okay, so at this time, did anybody have any inkling that you was doing this, or they come to you with this, or anything like that?
No, not at
So you
all.
hit it. You hit it very well.
Yes.
All right.
Uh,
So, I'm sorry. One question. So
yep,
now, looking back on it now, between 13 and 17, since you hit it so well, do you think that was the begin? That was the beginning part of your problem, right? You
correct.
think?
And the end.
Yeah. We'll get to that part. But dang, like
Yep.
you was going all the way down AC, putting it back in. Did you do anything else, like buy a car or whatever? You just put it right back in?
Yeah, so I wasn't winning per se.
Oh
That's
shit.
kind of when it started to I
Mm,
was just playing to make myself feel better.
gotcha.
Um During that time, like I said, I ended up getting another dispatching job.
Mm,
I was on 2 fire departments, and this is all by the time 2016 started. So
gotcha.
that period of time, it was just growing. Like I said, 2013 being the seed was planted, and now we're going to become this weed that won't go away.
Mm,
And it was all during that period of time. So
mm,
by the time, I'm just going to fast forward a little bit. By the time 2016 had started, well, I was on 2 fire departments. I was second lieutenant at one.
mm.
I became the treasurer of the other fire department. I was a secretary for my EMT squad, and I was working full-time hours plus pay as a 911 operator. So I had
Whoa.
all that going on at the beginning of 2016.
Mm.
So up until that point, it's almost like I noticed putting all this stress on myself and putting it all on was kind of like an excuse for me to have to, hey, I'm stressed, I got to go gamble. This makes me feel better.
Wow.
There was some overspending, like I said, with the car. Of course, I needed a car.
Mm-hmm.
I would get the car, and okay, I had my payments. I was making my payments for a good stretch of that time. I had it all evened out, but once 2016 started, it's that period of time where the problem really came to a head.
So
When
the
asked me,
gambling. Oh, I'm sorry, Chris. So the
yeah,
gambling made you feel better about everything you was going through at that time, right?
correct.
Okay. So I'm kind of curious. Why did you do all those jobs at that point in time?
Well, of course, I've always been a worker person. I wanted to be involved. It's almost like I kind of had this sense of self that I wanted all these people to see. How do I have time to do anything? How do I have time to, you know, do anything that I'm not supposed to be doing? I can't go out drinking because I'm always on call. it was just another way to hide it.
Wow.
Because gambling is such, everything has their mental health aspect to it. All the addictions, I get that. And
Mm.
if you want to talk about some of the similarities and differences,
Yeah.
um, you know, you can only put so much of a substance into your body before
Mm.
something physically is going to happen to you.
I
Oh,
mean, I know there's certain types of gambling methods, such as lotteries, casinos, racetracks, and right, because they're causing the most compulsive gambling addictions. Those right there, those types are right there. I'm just amazed by this. Have you ever heard of a pathological gambler?
correct. Yes.
Okay, like they lie about the gambling, so they lie about how much they do, they don't do, and it's likely with a mental health disorder or substance abuse disorder, just like how way you're saying. So, was
Right.
you classified that as a pathological gambler or no? Did you like deny it to yourself a lot, deny it to other people a lot?
Um, it definitely, yeah. I would say pathological. I personally call myself a compulsive gambler.
Got it.
That's how I refer to myself in everything that I've done.
Okay.
Um, because it was definitely more like an impulse thing for me.
Okay.
I was into the action. I didn't care if I lost or won as long as that next bonus round was coming. You know,
Oh,
um, or that next deal. I would end up like my gambling. I would play the card tables to go and play the slots. I would play the slots to go win money for the card tables.
so
And
this wasn't even
just to
about
have that
even
that
even trying to
sense, bachelor
win
party.
money. You was just like you just wanted to feel better.
Yeah. Yep.
Like the money didn't mean nothing. It's like I didn't care. Like I mean,
Right.
did you care if you win or lost?
No. No. I definitely didn't. And it really, like I said, that last that last year of 2016 is
Okay.
when it got like it got super crazy to
All
the
right. Go
point
ahead.
I was down there and I had a machine that was 3 times my rent. Okay.
Oh,
It's up and it's 3 times my rent. Wasn't good enough. And I had, a family member and some friends looking at this going, what the heck are you doing? And I was like, I just want to keep going. I just keep going. And I would. And I kept going and I kept going. And it was like, oh. And then I was leaving that day. And this is probably the first person that someone noticed something was off about me.
mhm.
It was my aunt. We were coming back that day. And I went through the toll. I don't have Easy Pass, but I went through the Easy Pass lane. And I'm a super careful driver. I don't do any of that. And I was so nervous because I put it all back. Like I put all that money back before we left.
Wow.
And I was basically, like I said, that last year was when I started to get in trouble. Okay. That's where it led me, gambling led me to be a liar, a manipulator, and a thief. That's
All
what
right.
happened.
Let's get to that part there because that's the interesting part. You had like a big downfall from that. So let's get to the part where everything hit rock bottom for you.
Okay. So okay, that was an incident that happened early on. As I told you, I had the position of treasurer at one of my fire departments, one of my fire companies. I didn't take the job, obviously, to do what I'm about to do at that point. That wasn't it at all. I really thought I could handle it.
Mhm.
I kind of got pushed into it too. I started as I was only going to be doing data entry and assisting the current treasurer. Next
Mhm.
thing you know, they vote me in, and here I am. I become treasurer of the fire department, still doing all my other things. I said, okay, so I started doing it, and like within a month, I started using the money I had access to, using a card, writing myself some checks. basically for bills. Okay. That's my rent, that car payment. Okay. Even groceries, dry cleaning, all the everyday expenses that I should have been using my earned money for. No, I used their card and their information. So when that incident I said with the toll, I was totally out of character. That was totally out of character for me. Things like that were happening. But because I lived alone, I could hide this. Gambling is considered the hidden addiction. And these are the reasons why. Okay. It can be hidden. I didn't have anyone to answer to, you
Yeah.
know, nobody asked. So, it was like, okay, no one even thought that I had it. Like I was hiding it very well. And the thing is too, it's like, you think about your substances, you see somebody with, bloodshot eyes, or you see someone stumbling. Oh, they're, the judgments. You're an alcoholic. That stigma. Oh, that looks like, a drug dealer, like all these things that are going on, but you can't tell a gambler. No, we hide it very well. We are
You know what? I was going to say that because they're saying that this is crazy. You know what I mean? Listen, when I looked up all this, problem gamblers are very successful and are seen as the strongest and the most intelligent people.
correct.
You would never know.
Nope.
Wow. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, continue.
No, okay. So time's going by, doing it more and more. I start doing it at work. I start missing work. Trying to get my, schedule covered. I can remember being down there and calling up like for last minute. Can you switch with me? I'm not going to make it back in time. Can you switch with me? I'd come up with whatever excuses I had to. It became a main player. And now it became huge because I'm trying to hide the fact that I'm stealing. Okay. I would fix the books. I didn't do nothing. I would change things around, at the end. I would make my reports and it was like nothing happened. I covered all my tracks, all this stuff. So I thought, I was really putting on this fakeness, like putting out this fakeness.
Wow.
And all the while they're paying my bills. I'm using their accounts like it's my private piggy bank, for all these things. And it just started going on. And now I start not sleeping. Now I start to feel a lot of effects like, I'm scared, I'm nervous, I'm ashamed that this is where it's gotten me, and I'm still going. And it kept going. And then, so I had taken money for almost 2 years from them.
Oh shit. Okay. I would like to again tell the audience again that Chris when she took this money, she took it to pay her own, not to gamble.
Right.
I just want to let everybody know that so everybody can understand that. Even though I know you said, I just want to repeat that. You did not take their money to gamble. You took it to pay your own bills. I just
Correct.
wanted to make that
Yeah.
correct to everybody.
As a matter of fact, the only time that I used their cards in a casino was when I was leaving. Because when I was out of money, just having that $20 that I took out in my pocket in case I needed gas or a way home or something like that, and it made me not feel like such a loser because I had money in my pocket, even if it was just $20.
So you did all this so again, this is to make you feel better.
Yep. Yep.
Wow. Okay. All right. But before you continue on, looking back on it now, can you, if you feel comfortable about this, and I know you went through a lot,
Sure.
can you give like an example of what you're trying to make feel better? I mean, but the gambling part, was something personal that you was going through that you like to share or not share about? You trying to make feel better? You feel comfortable about that?
Well, I definitely had stuff going on that I wouldn't find out about until I stopped gambling. There was a lot of mental stuff.
Got
Okay.
it. All right.
I don't mind going into it, but now since I found out, it's a little bit later, before I got like between getting in trouble that day and my sentencing date, between that period of time, that's when I started to kind of make the connection as to what was going on with me to make me get into this. What
And
made
what
it my addiction? What made it my habit?
in a brief statement, do you feel comfortable about telling what was going on with you?
Sure. Um, okay, so in that pretty much period of time, my dad had retired and moved from New Jersey to Louisiana, which was where my brother and his family lived. So, I lost my brother, then I, kind of I didn't, lose
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
They moved away.
Hmm.
There was a lot of animosity and the connection between me and my mom at that time.
Yeah.
I had just gone through disappointments, forget it. And not to mention, between 2006 and 2016, like that 10-year span right there, my jobs were all over the place. Something wasn't good enough. So, I had to move over here. I thought the
Hmm.
grass was greener on the other side. Okay. Relationships, nope, they all failed because I was picking people who I felt I deserved, but, I was devaluing myself,
Yeah.
to choose people that ended up being toxic for me.
Yeah.
And, so that I could keep it at a distance.
Got it.
I don't commit. So let me find the people who won't commit,
Got it.
into that relationship thing. I had to move. I just felt like I just had more disappointments and, played that. I played such a victim instead of focusing on what I could do to not be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense right there. So let's get to the part where everything hit rock bottom and you got caught. How'd you get caught?
Um, Eventually somebody, they actually looked into it. Eventually they looked into it, and I didn't know that they had caught on yet. So on December 16th of 2017, I had plans that day to go with my girls down to Atlantic City. We were going to go Smithville shopping, like all these things, and
Yeah,
had
yeah.
the day planned. I had the day off. Okay. I
Mm.
get up that morning to get ready for my day, and there's a knock at my door. And I go and answer the door, and I was met by two county prosecutor office detectives. And they came to the door, and I went to the door, and I answered it, and they said, Miss Palladino, and I said, yes. They said, we're with the county prosecutor. We'd like you to come down to our satellite office, which was the next town over, and we'd like to speak to you about the fire department's finances. I said, okay. Was there a little ting of relief? Kind of. But then it started. So I get down there. I said yes, didn't ask for a lawyer, didn't do none of that. Like I knew what they knew, I knew what they were about to know, and
Ugh,
why not,
man.
and I've always been that person,
Whew.
I never had a parking ticket, let alone any other kind of thing. And I also had that little sense of entitlement,
Mhm.
hey, I could get into this bar. They know me. A cop pulls me over. Don't you know this person? Don't you know that person? I never got anything. So I had
Mhm.
that big inflated, I'm on this side kind of thing to me. And
Yeah.
well, let's call this my deflate gate. So we get there. I get there and they start asking me questions. Well, one of the questions that he asked me was, do you have a gambling problem? And I was kind of like, I didn't know how to answer it. Okay. And true addicts, if you're not ready to admit you have a problem, or if you've never been asked that question, it's not easy to answer. So it was kind of like, I don't know, like, can we move? What's the next question? I'm not sure about that. Like I just kind of like did it, whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, they had read me my rights. They interviewed, they recorded the whole thing, and then it was like, okay. So I asked them, I was like, am I going home? And they were like, yes. I said, okay. So they followed me back to my house. They had me hand over all the property that belonged to the fire department, which was my keys, the computer, the whole thing. And I said, here you go. And as, he's filling it out, of course, they had to notify the police department I was working for at the time. And I got back home after handing everything over. The police department called me up and they were like, look, wait until it's all sorted out. You don't have to worry about your shifts. And of course I knew I don't have to worry about them ever again. Got it. So as he was telling me, he goes, listen, I just want, relax. He says, we're not going to come on Christmas Eve and take you in. We're just letting you know, this is our investigation. We are starting the investigation and it's going to be months before, anything else happens.
Okay.
Said, okay, thanks. He said, you're not going to go to jail. And I said, okay, thanks. And, he's like, there's bail reform. And I'm like, okay, thanks. Now, all the while, he was right. I wasn't going to go to jail. But I knew right then and there, after being in the field for almost 18 years at that point, I knew, like, you're right, I'm not going to jail. I knew I was going to be going to prison, without a doubt. Because if it was just the theft by deception, and mind you, that was $52,000 that I had taken. If it was just the theft by deception, well, I'd be the poster child for PTI. However, because I was in all the positions that I was in the state of New Jersey, it's considered official misconduct on top of my theft charge. Official misconduct in the state of New Jersey carries with it between 3 and 5 years mandatory state prison time.
Yeah.
So I knew that. Great. So now the time is coming. I did not call the girls and tell them to not come and get me. Like I said, go big or go home, right? Ended up going to Atlantic City that day. I got there. I got to my machine. Of course, the girls went over. I was going to let the girls, that day, I was also going to let the girls, hey, use my comps, get your kids some presents. I got so many of them. And I was like, yeah. So they left me alone at the machine, which I wanted them to do. Because like I said, no one plays next to me. You're not going to mess up my mojo. I got to the machine. I had a $20 bill. I put it in. And it's just a penny machine, max bet, about, 60 cents, whatever it was. And as the reels are spinning, in the back of my head, I hear that detective asked me, do you have a gambling problem? And now here's where it comes in. It was kind of like a shock and awe. I hit that cash out button, went to the thing, put it in my pocket, went to the girls, told them I wasn't really feeling well and I kind of wanted to go home, even though we had just gotten there. I said, no, go do your shopping and, let me see how I feel. Well, it's at that point that I think one of the worst parts about gambling addiction starts to happen. At that point, it started to get really dark. Okay. And I'm sure you read it. Out of all the addictions that there are out there, the highest suicide rate for attempts and completions is in gambling addiction.
Yep.
Out of all of them.
Yep.
So here we go. Now that's kind of how I start feeling. Like even to this day, like and I tell my story all the time when I'm out there, but it's like I just get that initial like fear and that whole sweat thing going on. And I was like, oh my God. So I'm thinking on the way home, I'm like, if there's a car accident right now, hope the girls are okay, but I don't care what happens to me. Am I going home? Is there going to be some ice? Can I fall and slip on my head? What do I have at home? I got to get out of this because it's not going to be some little thing in a police blotter. This is in my community. This was front page news, all the local newspapers. It was going to be on Facebook. It was, it was going to be on the news, the local news. Like this was going to be bad.
Yeah.
And I still haven't told my family. I don't have anything going on. And I was like, oh my gosh, no, how am I going to do this? And that's when I started to contemplate that dark place. And that night, I sat there. It was dark when I got home. I'm sitting in the room. I looked down at my two dogs, and I'm like, oh boy, And then, see, today I have a higher power. I call my higher power God, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So today I have that, and I know that my higher power intervened hugely, or the universe did, whatever. Because I was reminded of the last time I felt the way that I was feeling that night.
Yeah.
And that had happened 20 years prior to that night. And what happened was I lost a friend. Okay. I lost a friend to suicide, and it wasn't gambling related, but regardless, we were really close friends. We came up, police explorers, the whole thing together. He did some time overseas. He came back, finally got his full-time police job that we always wanted, and within months over a relationship, he took his own life. So I remember that weekend, that weekend after all that had happened, I'm at another friend's wedding with my brother, we're all there. And they played the song That's What Friends Are For.
Yeah.
And we're drinking, all this stuff. I get so emotional. By the time we went home, my younger brother, we were like, I don't know, we were 21 and 18, I'd say at the time. And he was just freaking out. He's like, Mom, you got to come here. You got to come here. I don't like what Christine is saying. I wanted to be with him. I didn't want to be there. Like, I didn't understand it. So here I am 20 years later, feeling the same way I felt that day. And my mom's words just came into me, like flooded into me. Because my mom said, the way you feel right now because you lost your friend, all those feelings, all those emotions, all these things that you're saying, would you ever want me, your dad, your brother, anyone who loves and cares about you to feel the way you're feeling right now if you took your own life?
Facts. It is facts. Chris, I may cut you off, but
It's okay.
when you got to the point where they finally investigated, what was that final nail in the coffin when they came and got you?
I think it happened, like I said, I think it happened when I remembered that. And the next, instead of, taking my life or, trying to get out of this, that next step that I took was I made the phone call for help.
Okay.
Instead, I made that phone call for help to a problem gambling helpline. I made that call, and that's when I was kind of like, okay, I'm ready to admit that I have an issue.
And you admitted you had an issue. So when did they come to get you and send you to prison?
That would not happen for another year. I was not due to be sentenced until January 4th of 2019.
So you was dealing with your gambling addiction for a year. You was getting help for it. And when you went to your sentencing, when you got sentenced, what you said you got sentenced for 3 to 5 years?
I got during 2018, once I called the helpline, they sent me to fellowship meetings. I did that. I got a sponsor. They sent me to a therapist. They actually got me a therapist.
Got it.
That I could talk to. It's a licensed addiction counselor who can also screen for gambling. We went, and I was seeing her, and then in that time period, she said, I think you need to go and see a psychiatrist.
Got
Now,
it.
for me, who's never seen a counselor before in my life, that was a big thing. Big responder. If you heard that, there was that stigma, like you're weak, you shouldn't be doing your jobs, things like that. And now she's going, I think you need to go see a psychiatrist. Like, okay. So the psychiatrist played a huge part in it because now, we talk about gambling being an emotional disease.
Yeah.
So yes, the co-occurring things happen. That's true. With a substance addiction, you can stay away from what's bad for you. But with gambling, it's until the money runs out. And number one, how can you live without money? We always have to. So I get to the psych, and that's when my mental diagnosis come into play.